Michael Jackson was one of the most famous people on the planet. It turns out he was also the target of intensive FBI scrutiny. Local police were so concerned about the media circus surrounding the 2005 Michael Jackson's child molestation trial, they asked the FBI to assess whether it was a soft target for terrorism. It was just one of the revelations from newly released FBI files that portray the King of Pop as potential criminal and potential victim. We learned today that as early as 1993, there were allegations that Jackson made sexually charged phone calls with a boy in London. And we discovered the FBI was more deeply involved in that highly publicized 2005 sexual abuse trial than we ever knew.
Certainly there's a very high motivation to help when there are children, potential children victims involved.
James Clemente was one of the FBI agents brought in to assist in the Jackson investigation.
We have the international and interstate capabilities to do investigations that local law enforcement and local DAs don't have. We also have the forensic capabilities.
FBI forensic scientists pored over Jackson's computers looking for evidence of child pornography, and agents helped with interview strategies for a victim who alleged that Jackson abused him in 1993. None of it ultimately mattered. Jackson was acquitted. But why would the FBI have a 300-page file on Jackson? Turns out many celebrities routinely end up finding themselves under FBI scrutiny. There are FBI files on Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, Martin Luther King, even former Supreme Court Justice William Rehnquist. Many involve threats. The new FBI files detail how Michael Jackson received death threats from a man obsessed with his famous sister Janet. In a series of bizarre letters, which included threats against President George Herbert Walker Bush, Frank Paul Jones writes he'd commit mass murder at a Michael Jackson concert, if necessary in an attempt to murder Michael. Jones was eventually arrested outside the home of Jackson's parents. Jackson brought many people so much joy, but in his case, clearly fame had a darker side. Robin?
It did, Pierre. Joining us now from Los Angeles, our attorney Brian Oxman, who has represented several members of the Jackson family for something like 20 years now, including Michael. And from Washington, Brad Garrett, ABC News consultant and former FBI agent. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. I want to start with you first, Brian. How aware, was Michael aware of the extent of the FBI's investigations?
Not at all, Robin. It was really kind of a surprise when we got these documents. Back in August, I learned that there was an FBI file on Michael Jackson. I made a request under the Freedom of Information Act, and as a result, this is what we have. We have the files coming out. There's some 673 pages, but the FBI has only released 333 pages. So we're kind of curious as to what is in the balance of it. We're surprised and shocked by what we found in what they did release, though.
Have they been talking with you at all? Have you been asking them questions as an attorney for the family?
I spoke to Mr. Jackson, Joe Jackson, last night, and he said that this FBI file was something he never heard of. Why are they investigating his son? They can't do those sorts of things. But as an attorney, I knew that the FBI was significantly involved in some of the aspects of Michael's life. But there are aspects, particularly the pornography aspects, which you had mentioned, that we had no idea that they were involved at all.
Brad, we saw in Pierre's piece that this is not unusual, that there are celebrities that are investigated, and a lot of people want to know why. Why did the FBI, why did they take up these cases?
Well, Robin, when you look at the files that have become available, they are files where the FBI has been asked by the police to help them with certain aspects of the case. They're really not operational FBI cases. For example, coming to the FBI because they have a forensic capability with computers to mirror image hard drives so they can look at evidence inside a computer, or asking for investigative strategies or interview strategies that they may ask the profiling unit at Quantico. So these are really support functions where the FBI was involved in the case. The other side, of course, are the threats, which were operational cases.
Because a lot of people want to know how much time, resources, expense goes into these types of cases.
That's exactly right. I think you have to look at it. It's areas where the police either have limited manpower or they just don't really have an expertise in a particular area, so they step to the FBI for help.
Well, as Brian just said, Brad, hundreds of pages from the FBI. They only released about 300 or so, and a lot of people are asking, why? Why are they releasing this now?
Well, I think it got released obviously under the Freedom of Information Act, but what you don't have typically are things that could have been used as evidence or may still be under review, or maybe more importantly, protecting people who gave them information, whether it be true, whether it be not true. And so that's typically why things get redacted.
And Brian, what do you want people to know now that these pages, this investigation, all these investigations have been released? What do you want the public to know about it?
Very interesting, Robin, in all of these pages, hundreds of pages, many, many hours of investigation, going to the Philippines, going to Chicago, going all over the country. There's not one scrap of evidence that Michael Jackson ever harmed a child, did anything wrong, committed any crime. It's almost a vindication when you look at this. The FBI looked at all of these matters and said, there's nothing here. And I think that's the most startling thing which I've seen.
Well, Brian and Brad, thank you very much for your perspectives and insight. Appreciate it very much. Both of you take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.